Good evening, members. Before we begin the meeting, I would like to ask my celebrant, Jenny Knight, to guide the council in a moment of reflection.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With this being the final meeting of 2022, I thought I would do something a little bit different today. I noticed there are a couple of people here that are definitely in the festive spirit, so with that in mind, I would like to share a few words with you in the form of a poem that I've written. As we fast approach the end of this year, giving thanks for what we have and what we hold dear, I wanted to say a huge thank you for welcoming me here and for all that you do. I did want to write about each of you in turn, but this would be too long, and of that I have learned. To try and make things rhyme is hard, believe me, especially with multi-syllable surnames like Councillor McClafferty. Conservative, Liberal, Labour or Green, far left or far right, or somewhere in between. What you do here is important, keeping the community in mind. Opinions may differ, but it's key to be kind. So with gratitude, we look back on what we have done. With anticipation, we look forward to what will come. We all celebrate this festive time in many different ways, but I wish you and your families a very happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Please be seated. Welcome, members, officers, honorary aldermen and any members of the public viewing at home to this evening's council meeting. Miss Simpson, please may I have any apologies for absence?
We've had apologies from Councillor Betton and Councillors Chapman, Croke, Lewis, Barnett and Jennings-Evans have joined us online.
Thank you. Item number 2, moving on to item number 2, I propose that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 26th of October 2022 be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second this motion.
Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
Moving on to item number 3, my announcements. Thank you. We have realised that we have members of the public with us this evening, so we haven't as yet been through the housekeeping rules. The fire exits are one to my left and one to my right. The stairs are obviously straight in front. Please do not leave the lift, and we are not expecting any fire drills this evening. So moving on to item number 4, I'd like to invite the leader, please, to make his announcements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. By way of an early Christmas present to everyone here, I've decided to try and keep my announcements short. I attended a Surrey-wide housing summit last week, which focused on the needs for greater joined-up thinking between councils, housing associations, developers and Homes England to tackle what can only be called the housing crisis. The event highlighted the challenges that every council is facing in delivering enough homes for local people, particularly affordable ones. The speakers, of course, pointed to high land values in this part of the country and levels of affordability that make it almost impossible for young people to buy their first home. They also highlighted the challenges being faced by the NHS and other major employers to attract staff. They're losing staff. They're making offers to staff to join them. And then when those staff have a look at house prices and trying to get a house in this area, they're turning down the jobs because they can't move into this area, which of course is going to have a knock-on effect on the services that they deliver. One of the interesting things particularly was the challenges and opportunities of what was called under-occupation, people living in much larger houses than they need, particularly as they become older and find the prospect of downsizing too daunting, the idea of selling the house, packing up, moving to a new one, buying a new house. And I found that there's an opportunity there that we're going to be exploring in the new year to see if there's a way that we can actually help facilitate that. That could actually free up a lot of properties. I can report that I and the other Surrey leaders have had a number of meetings with Tim Oliver regarding Surrey County Council's county deal. I can report that we've been working with County to consider devolving additional functions and, of course, the resources to the boroughs and districts to help deliver more efficient and locally responsive services, all of which I'm pleased to report have been welcomed by County. As part of the Council's successful driving improvement campaign, we have recently secured the prosecution for a fly-tipped lorry container to the rear of Mitcham Court, Old Dean. Through the courts, we secured a fine of £616 and were awarded £2,000 in costs. Of course, we know as members that we're very prompt at attending. Sometimes we're there within hours of it being reported, but it's not a victimless crime. It's damaging to the environment and to wildlife and contain often hazardous materials such as asbestos. I'm pleased to say that we've now deployed mobile CCTV at sites that have previously been targeted by fly tippers in the process of securing more successful prosecutions in the future. Using feedback from the councillors last month, an intensive cleaning of our multi-storey car parks has taken place, with particular attention given to the stairwells. I think we all agreed there was work needed to be done on the stairwells in particular. We've also ensured that any cleaning issues are dealt with more promptly. Given the challenges being faced by so many of our residents in the wake of the cost of living crisis, I'm pleased to confirm that in partnership with Citizens Advice, we have awarded £362,000 to residents in the greatest need. So they can apply to CASH, and if they hit the criteria, then we're able to give them some additional funds. This is in addition to the £150 energy rebate on council tax that was provided to households earlier this year, and in addition to our emergency food, fuel and energy scheme that we launched recently. The Council has been working with local community groups and charities across the borough who are preparing to distribute Christmas hampers to families in need across the borough. This includes organisations such as the BSOM and Salvation Army, as well as local businesses, in the hopes, of course, that the people most in need in the borough at this time of the year will not go without. Continuing with Christmas, the Council's Christmas tree recycling service is gearing up to have its most successful year yet. Trees can be dropped off at 15 designated locations throughout the borough, anytime between the 5th and 15th of January. Details on locations, timings, etc. are on the website, and hopefully we'll do better than the 3,000 plus trees that we recycled last year. And finally, I'd like to thank all the members and the officers for all you've done and achieved this year. I hope we're ending the year a much stronger and more effective organisation and ready to take on whatever 2023 may bring. And who on earth knows what 2023 is going to bring. But for now, I'd just like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and, of course, a very happy Hogmanay. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Agenda number 5, declaration of interest. Do any members have any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare in relation to the matters which are to be considered this evening? Moving on to item number 6, executive committees and other bodies. Executive minutes and recommendations. You'll see that a revised recommendation from the executive has been circulated. Can I have a proposer, please, for the executive minutes and the update recommendation at minute 69E?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose the minutes of the executive on the 15th of November and 6th of December and the recommendation 69E small 1 as you've indicated. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second as proposed.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes and agree the recommendation?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Planning Applications Committee. Can I have a proposer, please, for the Planning Applications Committee minutes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose the minutes for the Planning Applications Committee on the 3rd of November.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm very happy to confirm second that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes?
Agreed.
Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee. Can I have a proposer, please, for the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee minutes?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose that we accept the minutes of the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee meeting on the 9th and the 24th, which I was not available, but I'm sure my wife here will be proposing that at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a proposal for the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee of the 9th of November. Do you have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second those minutes.
Thank you. Members, are we agreed? Can I have a proposer, please, for the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee minutes of the 24th of November?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to propose those minutes.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second that proposal.
Members, are we agreed?
Agreed.
Audit and Standards Committee. Can I have a proposer, please, for the Audit and Standards Committee meeting the 21st of November? Can I have a proposer, please, for the Audit and Standards Committee of the 21st of November?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to propose the minutes of the Audit and Standards Committee on the 21st of November.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Members, are you happy to receive these minutes?
Agreed.
External Partnerships Select Committee. Can I have a proposer, please, for the External Partnerships Select Committee minutes on the 29th of November?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose the minutes of the External Partnership Select Committee on the 29th of November.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second those minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes?
Agreed.
Joint Staff Consultative Group. Can I have a proposer for the notes of the Joint Staff Consultative Group dated the 24th of November?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose the Joint Staff Consultative Group minutes for the 24th of November 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second that proposal.
Members, are we happy to receive these notes? Which brings us to the end of that item. Moving on to questions from members of the public. I've been advised that 2 questions have been received from members of the public under Council Procedure Rule 10. Question 1. Welcome to Mr. Bain. Would you like to come to the microphone? Mr. Bain here. Yes, thank you. If you'd like to ask your question.
So I take it, could I just ask a question, a procedural question?
You may.
I thought it was the case that the answer would be read to me and to everyone else.
Yes, if you ask the question, then the answer will be given.
Well, sorry, hold on. I'm only prepared for the supplementary. I'm not prepared for the question.
We'll give him the question. We're going to give him the question.
I beg your pardon. Right. May I ask a second supplementary question before I ask my supplementary? How does the council interpret the word short in terms of the amount of time I'm given to ask a supplementary?
I'm sorry, Mr. Bain. I'm going to have to ask you if you would mind asking your first question first, and then once we've received the answer to that, we can then move on to the supplementaries
Right.
from there, if that's okay.
I'm very used to appearing before Councillor Hawkins, but this is all new to me. Right, here we go. Can the council fully publish the briefing papers given to councillors in 2016 and thereafter to support the acquisition of the Mall and the House of Fraser store so that residents might understand the reasoning for such acquisitions, with the accompanying borrowing proposals, and furthermore, does the council accept that by not funding the acquisitions with secure long-term debt to match the nature of the assets has resulted in significantly larger overall debt interest payments?
Thank you, Mr. Bain. I'm advised that the Finance and Customer Services portfolio holder will respond to the question. Councillor Perry, please.
Evening, Mr. Bain. I can confirm that the council will review the exempt papers at the earliest opportunity with a view to making them available for disclosure wherever possible. The council does not accept the second point raised by you in your note. In fact, the reverse of the situation is true. Whereas the council has been able to borrow at extremely low short-term interest rates over the past 6 years and has successfully rolled over the lower rate loans, thereby saving the council significant sums of money in interest costs. The council, following the guidance of SIPFA, Institute of Public Finance Accountancy, Treasury and Prudential Notes, does not always borrow at the time of the acquisition of the asset. This decision is based on the overall need and cash flow, which means that the council will assess the borrowing need based on the total capital financing requirement. It will normally hold a mix of long-term, short-term and internal debt. The security of any borrowing is set against the revenues of the council and is not held against any particular asset. The council will apply the notional hurdle rate on any proposed acquisition that ensures that the asset will achieve a return in excess of the relevant Public Works Loan Board rate at the time, plus an element for capital repayment over the life of the asset, which is the minimum revenue provision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Mr. Bain, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
I would very much like to answer my question, but how much time is allocated to me?
We would ask that the question needs to be relevant and relatively short. Please.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Right. I will speak on the basis of Mr. Councillor
no-
Hawkins' 3-minute rule.
There is no
Right, here we go. First of all, I am scunnered by the fact that after 6 years, these papers remain exempt, but hopefully we will be seeing the papers in the fullness of time. I have never questioned the answer given in part 2. In fact, I have been extremely supportive of the fact that there has been a massive benefit to this council in as much as the council resorted to short-term borrowings, which is quite unusual when set against a long-term asset. It's something I wouldn't have done, but you've had a good tailwind on that. But in order to support and substantiate the second part, could someone please tell me the rate of interest payable on the loan which replaced the 5 million loan from North Somerset District Council, which was repaid on the 14th of November, and the likely rate on the £10 million, which is repayable tomorrow to West Midlands Council, the 3 million to Crawley on Friday, and the 5 million to West Midlands Combined Authority on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bain. Would the portfolio like to respond to the question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we've advised Mr. Bain many times, we are very happy about the situation we have in using the short-term loans and rolling them over with the loans from other local authorities. It's a very unusual set of circumstances which don't apply to the normal commercial sector. I can tell you that we have rolled over those loans. We're paying 2.95, 2.97 and 3% on those loans. And that's a tiny proportion higher than the existing loans which we're rolling over from.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Thank you, Mr. Bain, for your question. Question 2. I'd like to welcome Ms. Sherard Smith. Would you like to approach the microphone?
So my question is, does Surrey Heath Borough Council consider they have all the knowledge, skill and competence to make a balanced judgment on each and every planning application for installations and upgrades of telecommunications towers, masts and poles that emit radio frequency radiation, taking into account all material considerations or material planning considerations as stated in many regulations for planning and for public service. These would include health, environment, sustainability, visual amenity, appropriateness of the site and location, the needs and desires of the local community and the claimed service provision or improvement by the applicant.
Thank you. I understand Councillor Hawkins, as Chair of Planning Applications Committee, will be answering this question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My reply is as tabled in front of everybody. However, I will read it through. I can't work out yet if I can manage without my glasses or with my glasses. So you'll have to excuse me if I take them on or off. It's still a struggle. I can confirm that Surrey Heath Borough Council's planning, I told you it would be a problem, planning service does have all the appropriate knowledge and skills to assess planning applications. All planning officers involved in determining planning applications in Surrey Heath Borough Council area are chartered planners, have undergone rigorous postgraduate professional training and development underpinned by the professional membership of the Royal Town Planning Institute, the RTPI, and overseen by the National Planning Policy Framework. The question relating to mobile phone masts indicates a potential misunderstanding about the role of local planning authorities in relation to this type of infrastructure. Mobile phone operators have extensive permitted development rights granted through the General Permitted Development Order, GDPO 2015, as amended. This means that telecommunication companies in this country have significant scope to install new telecommunication infrastructure or upgrade existing infrastructure without requiring approval from the local planning authority. They are, however, required to notify the council if they intend to install infrastructure in areas where they have not previously done so. There is very limited scope, therefore, for the local planning authorities to intervene in the installation and upgrades of mobile phone masts. For example, in relation to health, all telecommunication companies are required to operate within the statutory guidelines set out by the International Commission on Non-Ionising Radiation Protection, which is the ICNIRP, as confirmed by the National Planning Policy Framework, and local authorities are not able to set alternative standards. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Ms Sherrard-Smith, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you. Are you aware that there is EU retained law of the European Electronic Communications Code, and under Recital 106 it says, where mobile operators are required to share towers or masts for environmental reasons, such mandated sharing could lead to a reduction in the maximum transmitted power levels allowed for each operator for reasons of public health, and this in turn could require operators to install more transmission sites to ensure national coverage. Competent authorities, which would be the local planning authority, competent authorities should seek to reconcile the environmental and public health considerations in question, taking due account of the precautionary principle set out in Council Recommendation of 1999-519 of the EC. So that's just to put it in perspective that the local planning authorities are the competent authorities. They can and should be evaluating everything correctly. So having been told this evening that you do have the skills and the expertise, I would refer to a mast that was proposed for my village, and I didn't get any expertise from either this council or Surrey County Council as to the map and where that site is. But I shall move on from reading maps, and I will talk specifically about the International Commission of Non-Ionising Radiation Protection.
You've asked your first question and
Yes.
the supplementary question. Could I now ask Councillor Hawkins to answer
I haven't
that for
answered
you?
asked the supplementary question yet. My supplementary question is about the ICNIRP guidelines. Do you know the power intensity drop-off calculations supplied by the relevant telecoms mast applicant for any of these masts, any individual one? Have you looked at that?
Thank you very much. Councillor Hawkins, will you be responding now or 7 days?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think once I've had an opportunity to understand just the question and the background to it, I will arrange for an answer to be prepared and submitted within 7 working days. I think it's the best I can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. That brings us to the end of public questions, and we move on to questions from councillors. Sorry. I can advise that no questions have been received from councillors. So moving on to leaders' question time. I'm sorry, Councillor Deitch.
I am right in saying that we get to ask questions now, right? This is that bit. Is it? Oh, good. Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, can I'd just like to invite members to ask questions of Councillor Alan McClafferty, the leader, on issues relating to executive functions. Please be aware that 20 minutes is allocated for leaders' question time. In order to give everyone a chance, I'll try and ensure that all members have had the opportunity to ask a first question before I invite you to ask a second. So if you have more than one question, please could I ask that you prioritise a first question. Please Also, keep your introduction to your question as short as possible so we can hear as many questions as possible. Now, could I please have the first question, which I believe is Councillor Deach, please?
What gave you that idea? Thank you. So on the 8th of December, this council posted to its Facebook page that the severe weather emergency protocol was to be activated. Now, for those that don't know what that is, you know, when it drops to below a certain temperature, anyone who's homeless or rough sleeping in the borough, this council will make sure that they're found suitable accommodation. Okay. Now, now I completely agree with the local connection policy being applied when it comes to housing. Okay. Hang on a minute, Edward. I don't agree with the local connection policy being applied to the severe weather protocol. Okay. Now, would the leader and the executive urgently review this policy? My understanding is that we've got, at this moment in time, about 6 people sleeping rough in this borough, in this cold weather, okay, who fall foul of this policy. When I left to work the other day, on Monday, it was -6, okay? I understand this is not criticism of the executive or this council, but I think that this policy needs urgently looking at before somebody dies. I don't want that on my conscience. I don't want residents coming to me tomorrow or whenever and saying, this resident died and you didn't house them. I would like you to look at that very urgently. And finally, I have a robust idea that it's too late to do it now, but for the next time, because it's not a regular occurrence when this weather drops to this temperature. It's a once in a couple of years situation. I have a robust idea to deal with this in a cheap way for the future, and I'd like the leader to, or the responsible officer to meet with me to discuss that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Deach. The severe weather housing policy is a bit of a nonsense. In my opinion, we've had these discussions, and overall our housing policy and our homeless efforts are, I think, far and above many other councils. But the severe weather policy is something as silly as if it drops below 0 3 nights in a row, then we come under a different duty to house. Okay? But if it's -2, -3, and +1 or 0, we don't have that duty. That's reducing people to an algorithm which I think is just nonsense. We have, if you say it's 6, I know I was in a meeting just the other day with the portfolio holder, and we believe, our officers believe, that we have approached pretty much everybody that we know. In fact, everybody that we know is on the streets, and it always surprises me, but a number of them have refused help.
Even without a local connection?
Yeah, yes, absolutely, all right. Of course, the idea with local connection is that we've got more of a duty. Surrey Heath Borough Council should look after Surrey Heath residents, I get that. Kent, you know, Rushmore should look after Rushmore, I get that. But I couldn't agree more that if somebody, a human being, is on the streets in Surrey Heath and it's freezing, I think anybody would say, let's get them off the streets and then worry about where they live and what their connection is later, okay? Housing them is very different to getting them off the street and getting them someplace warm and maybe a bite to eat first, okay? So I couldn't agree more. I'm more than happy to review that, but I'm pretty sure our policy is already there, but I will confirm that. And I would love to know later on what your fantastic, robust, cheap plan is that we can talk about later. I'd love to meet with you and talk about that.
Thank you, Leader. Any more questions? Where to go first? Right, Councillor Wise, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the recent passing of the voter identification legislation that's going to be imposed upon elections in May, can the leader assure me that Surrey Heath Borough Council will be taking all steps necessary to ensure that residents are well aware of this change, and that Surrey Heath Borough Council has the resources, including in staffing as well as finances, to ensure that this is implemented correctly. And does the leader agree with his colleague, the chair of the Conservative group on the Local Government Association, that the implementation of this legislation for the May 2023 elections is misguided and should be delayed? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. Leader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's an interesting question. Well, particularly part two. Let me answer part one first. We're advised by the government that whatever the costs to the borough of implementing an election with voter ID will be covered by the government. So that's good, isn't it? Okay? And I'm absolutely certain they will. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's slightly less than the costs of the actual voter ID costs. But they have said on record that this will not cost the councils. That's the financial one, of course. Do we have the resources? Yes, we do. We're very good at running elections, and we have the staff in place, and they would be fully trained to do that. I think there's some debate right now at Westminster about what is an acceptable form of ID. As you may know, the travel card, it was the octopus, I think they call it, is it? Oyster. I knew it was something like that. Right? The Oyster card, it's acceptable if you're a 65 plus, but it's unacceptable if you're an 18 plus. Right? And yet they're identical other than 18 or 65. Now, I've looked into it, and it's possible for a 17-year-old to legitimately get an 18 card. Not sure how, but yeah. But I'm not sure that really changes it, because they wouldn't be on the voter register at 17. So they couldn't, even if they showed up with that card, they couldn't actually then vote because they're not on the register. So I've certainly had conversations with Michael Gove about this, and he's promised to look into it and see. And we will be using the widest possible selection of ID voter cards. So anything that is on the list we will definitely be using, and we'll be looking to get as many people through voting as possible. We are committed to having as few people as possible turned away because of this. My colleague at LGA has his view, and I can understand that view, but that's his view and not my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Malvaganam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question for the leader is regarding the new planning guidelines which has been circulated to all the councillors today, or not today, or last week. And as he knows, we had a meeting today, a very detailed, not a detailed meeting, a big picture meeting. I see that this is going to cost the council, as much as cost the working group chair a lot of work. Because what will happen, as I understand it, the local plan has to now be paused, so that the new legislation which comes up early in January or whenever it comes up is going to supersede all the hard work our officers have done. Would Councillor McLefty, the leader, agree with me to actually not to pause the work which the local plan group has done, but to start publishing parts of it which are essential for the residents to understand there's a change coming? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm slightly surprised by the question because, as you say, we had the meeting today and you proposed that and I agreed with it in the meeting.
Sorry, interrupt you. Other councillors were not here or at that meeting. Hence, I want the leader to actually explain it to the other councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. The change in the, it's not a change in the legislation, because it's, right now, it's a letter from Michael Gove to all the MPs and to all the councils. And it's a kind of a double-edged sword, I think. First of all, it's very, very good in that it is now saying that instead of having numbers imposed on every borough for housing levels all across the country, that groups like ourselves, the local councils, are going to have a lot more say in what those numbers should be. And we're going to find ourselves in positions where we're able to have a local plan that I think far more accurately reflects what our residents want. Our residents tend to not be against house building. They're against a lot of inappropriate house building, and some of that inappropriate house building is deemed by them because we have to follow the rules. And if the rules are changing, that's a very, very good thing. It's a double-edged sword because we were at the point almost of pushing the button. I think we were meeting in January to sign off on the local plan going to the inspector. It was a very, very good local plan, it still is. But the letter from Michael Gove definitely changes the rules of the game, and it's right that we pause. And for the record, I appreciate why you've asked me the question now, Councillor Mavagana. For the record, I do agree that we should pause. We've got no choice. But we should publish large aspects to our residents of what is already a very, very good local plan. So I agree, as I often do with my colleague.
Thank you, Leader. I saw Councillors Bates and Hawkins. Try again. Councillor Hawkins, if you'd like to go first, I don't know what the order was. So.
Thank you very much. Madam Leader, following the desperately sad activity up in Solihull on frozen lakes, what measures are we taking to ensure that the lakes and ponds in our borough are as safe as they possibly can be? Thank you.
Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Hawkins, I'm sure the entire chamber agrees that it was a tragedy, particularly when children are involved and they're playing on the ponds. It's a very, very good point. What are we doing about it to do that? At this point, I couldn't actually tell. I have no answer. But what I will do is I'll take the point away. And I think I will respond within 7 days within writing, but I will actually talk about this tomorrow with the Chief Executive and see what we can do.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This wasn't my question, but I believe that was covered in junior citizens. So for certain children, there may be that education, but I think it's a very good question you've raised. I'm glad you raised it. The question I want to raise was in relation to something that Mr. Bain said earlier regarding the report and decision that was made by Council in 2016, and specifically the report that we considered as councillors. Now, that was a decision in July 2016, and I would therefore ask the Leader, can he therefore now publish this? I appreciate we've had a response to Mr. Bain to say we'll re-look at it again, but my recollection is we have in fact not released any of that report. Could we not at least produce a redacted report? This is a matter which, Mr. Bain is not the only resident, many residents have raised that decision, and they deserve an answer as to what information did we have as councillors. We've had a scrutiny committee report as well, and I think people deserve to know. Maybe certain information needs to be kept confidential, but we should be publishing the maximum possible information about the decision that many of us chose. I voted against, but many of you voted in favour, and the public deserve to know why.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Leader.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the steer on the children's thing. We'll have a look at that, and hopefully, obviously, that doesn't cover a huge number of children, but you know, any one of them does. I agree with the answer that we gave. We've got to go back and have a look and see what we've done. You're quite right. We had the independent report, and the performance scrutiny committee had a look at it. I think there's already quite a lot of information out there, but I'm more than happy to go back I think this chamber is committed to being as open and honest as we can and get as much information out there. And I agree that information that shouldn't be put out is anything that's still commercially sensitive, but otherwise, I would support that going out.
Thank you, Leader. Any other members? Any other members other than Councillor Malvagnam?
Yeah, because it's his second question.
Councillor Malvagnam, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is my second question for the record. It's going back to the purchase of the shopping centre. I mean, you're right. Yes, PNF had a look at it. But as you know, we haven't been able to actually look behind. Even the PNF was unable to do so. So it would be appropriate at this time to review that evidence to see whether we can release any more, because we are in 2022. By the time it comes out, it'll be 2023. So it's very important now to start releasing more information to the public. Even I'm intrigued by what was not released to the PNF. Although I raised a number of questions, we were unable to speak about it in public. Thank you very much.
It wasn't a question, no.
Sorry. No, my question was very simple. Sorry. Are you the leader, Councillor Dugan? You're not. So I would appreciate if I... No. I did ask...
Thank you, gentlemen. Councillor Malvagnam, is there a question at the end of your statement, please?
Yes, I did ask. Would they release it? What's the question? It
Right,
was
Leader.
actually asked within
Thank you, Councillor Leader.
what I said. If that's very hard to understand, I have a problem. Or if I don't have,
That's
the council
fine,
has a
thank you.
problem.
Leader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're most welcome.
I would refer Councillor Malvagnam to my previous answer to Councillor Bates. I agree that it will release as much as we possibly can. Obviously, it's vexing a number of people, and I'm happy for the information to go out.
Thank you, Leader. Any more questions? No, that concludes the business of the meeting then. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I'd like to invite councillors to join me in the members' room for drink and light refreshments, which have been kindly provided by the Leader and the Chief Executive. Thank you both. And, of course, it just leaves me to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Right, that's all just pink.
I don't know why.
Hanging around.
Well, since I'm paid for it, yeah.
Pay for it.